Well, good afternoon. So my name is Marcus Eriksen. I'm the Executive Director of the Gyres Institute. I've had the pleasure of coming to Cleveland for a few years with Kathy Lynn organizing boat floats. But this year did something wonderful. With the help of the Burning River Foundation, we were able to launch an expedition in addition to the boat float and survey plastic pollution on the surface of the Great Lakes and the surrounding beaches. So we'll show you the results of that expedition. Okay. Let me run through these real quick.
Okay.
So I want to show you a few slides. Well, first, the background information about plastic pollution in the world. If you look at the accumulation zones for plastics, we have these 5 subtropical gyres. And a gyre just means these rotating currents. The North Pacific gyre and the North Atlantic gyre, they extend from coast to coast, basically, and they're going in a clockwise direction. And there are 3 down here, counterclockwise. I've had the chance to sail through all of them in the last few years, and they're all full of microplastic pollution. Microplastics being small particles less than 5 millimeters. Here's the South Pacific gyre, and the North Pacific gyre, the Indian Ocean gyre, the South Atlantic, and the North Atlantic. So we know it's out there, and it extends globally in all of the world's ocean basins. So there are these hotspots for plastic pollution accumulation. In the gyres, of course, this background photograph with the dark blue, there's a recent paper published in Marine Pollution Bulletin looking at not just how the currents might accumulate debris, but looking at also the sources, the point sources by river mouths, and also the variable of population density. Looking at those 3 things combined, population, rivers, and currents, we figure there are not just accumulation zones, or we call them garbage patches, in the 5 gyres. There's hotspots as well. The Mediterranean Sea is a closed sea, the Gulf of Mexico. We have the Black Sea and the Great Lakes are these possible hotspots for plastics. And that sort of prompted this expedition to go aboard the Flash Niagara and survey those hotspots. Next slide. So here we show you.
Yeah.
We'll show you a little short film that one student on board just made about his experience for 3 weeks on the ship just last month. And there's no sound.
And there's no sound. No, it's not something that we have plugged in, actually.
Can you sing?
Not well enough that anybody would want to hear it.
We can narrate a bit, tell about the expedition. Is the microphone? Who said that? Genius.
Turn it on.
As a remarkable educational platform, just because traditional sailing ship, absolutely nothing about it. Walking into an environment that is
The 2 scientists.
very
I'm thanks to Where's the
sharing what I've learned, passed it down to me.
I don't see a button.
That are involved in sailing a ship like this, being hundreds of years old, have literally been passed down from
All right.
generation to generation.
help?
Okay,
Where's the
anybody
button? This
with
thing?
technical expertise?
Well,
We took 21 samples, and ultimately, it's a pretty good first look at what is here. When we started sampling, we found the same sort of samples
Sure.
that we find.
Why not? Let's do that.
Okay.
So we sailed 3 of the 5 Great Lakes. This is the St. Clair River. We sailed the St. Clair River. It's the first time this boat has sailed up.
The ship is a remarkable educational platform just because when you step aboard a traditional sailing ship, knowing absolutely nothing about it, you're walking into an environment that is very historically authentic. I cherish the idea of sharing what I've learned from people that have passed it down to me. The skills that are involved in sailing a ship like this
ultimately, it's a pretty good first look at what is here. When we started sampling, we found the same sort of samples that we find in the ocean, which was pretty alarming. We also have a researcher from the University of Wisconsin-Superior, Dr. Lorena Rios, who is an ecotoxicologist looking at the chemical uptake of the plastics.
The student program really just developed out of wanting to give the students an intense investigation onto the Great Lakes, hands-on, real-time experience, and a truly unique experience at that. Looking at the lakes, I was reminded of everything I've heard about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, and I really wanted to kind of investigate plastics in the Great Lakes.
I came on this trip for a field ecology course for like my college as part of my major, but also just experience an awesome adventure and get out and learn something new. I learned a lot about microbiology, field ecology, lake ecology, but most importantly I learned a lot about the plastic and everything the 5 Gyres have been doing. And I had no idea about anything. Even being a surfer from California, I had no idea how bad it was. It's changed my life drastically already.
So as you can see, we use a 333 micron mesh net that we skim the sea surface, well, in this case, the lake surface. It looks like a manta ray, 60 centimeters wide. So we're getting most of the zooplankton, some of the phytoplankton, and all the plastics larger than our mesh size. And most of what we're finding was, well, there was a lot of biological debris as the background, lots of zooplankton and plant material, and some plastics. It wasn't as degraded as what you find in the oceans. Here it's very new, just coming off our watersheds out into the lake. It hasn't yet broken down by UV degradation or mechanical degradation just yet, although some has. We did find some larger fragments, but a lot were the microplastic particles. The next one. This is one little micro bead that we found in one of our samples, one of many. Next slide. We actually found many, very many. In fact, we found more, and there were 2 samples we took. One sample in particular had 1,596 samples. And I've done similar tows now, about 500 different tows around the world, and this was by far the most dense by count, 3 times more dense than any other previous sample anywhere else in the world. So we're finding a lot of debris leaving our watersheds here, but it's not the small stuff. Next slide. So you can see just how small it is. We're talking little micro beads, perfect little spheres. Now imagine this. This is a 1-hour tow going 2 knots, very slow for 1 hour across the lake. There must be millions, hundreds of millions of these micro beads in our lakes at every given moment. Next slide. So 21 samples in all in 3 lakes. You can see the more dense ones were very much downriver. And that doesn't mean there's a trend. What this might be showing us is that just south of the larger populated areas is where most of this debris is occurring. Now we also sampled some of the beaches as well. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.